This is Henry Chamberlain. I'm speaking with Eric D. Howell. He's a filmmaker. He got on a lot of people's radar with his short film, Anna's Playground, and that was shortlisted for an Academy Award. He is now taking his storytelling skills over to graphic novels with the Revolution of Cassandra. And I wanted to start with, how would you explain this title, The Revolution of Cassandra, for somebody just jumping in?
Thank you, and thank you for having me on. First of all, Henry,
Sure.
it's a pleasure to be here with you. It started out. Revolution of Cassandra is a story about two sisters who live in a fictitious Central American country, and one of them, Cassandra, is a complete idealist who has these sometimes crazy beliefs, and her sister Moira, who almost has no beliefs, and together they trade whiskey for humanitarian aid in this fictitious Central American country that they are from originally. And anyway, they end up getting into a heap of mess. I kind of call it a Laura Croft with dreadlocks and Birkenstocks adventure, sort of a Romancing the Stone meets Laura Croft and Birkenstocks. And one of the sisters Moira ends up cutting a deal with the local gun runner, and it goes bad, and she ends up being taken by the local dictator. So now our left-wing idealist has to work with this right-wing conservative gun runner, and they have to find some common ground in order to meet in the middle and actually succeed at rescuing Cassandra's sister. And then the reason for the title is the Revolution of Cassandra. Cassandra is the woman in mythology that you may or may not know was given the gift of clairvoyance, but the curse that nobody would believe her. And Cassandra is this idealist who, even though even I as a writer think her beliefs are a little bit off kilter, she believes so strongly in what she believes, and she ends up changing the world around her, and becomes like sort of a guiding post for others.
Oh, perfect. That's a perfect way to start. I want to point out to folks to go to Revolution of Cassandra, because the first installment of the story is already up. It'll be 6 chapters, and then it's collected into a 213-page graphic novel, which comes out next year.
It'll come out, the full printed copy will come out, we're pushing for February. Right now, the first 36-page volume is free at revolutionofcassandra.com. So you can just check it out for free. And if you like it, books 2 and 3 are available online as well right now.
I know it can be hard for people to process stuff, but I just encourage everybody to go to your website to get a feel for who you are and how creative you are and how adventurous. I mean, go to Eric Howell, or Eric D. Howell, I should say. Eric.
Yeah, I'm sorry about the D. I need to apologize for the D. This is I started in this business as a stuntman and a stunt coordinator. In the Screen Actors Guild, there was already somebody named Eric Howell.
I see.
And so I had to use my middle initial. It sounds super pretentious when you say it. You don't have to use the D, but if you go to ericdhowell.com, yeah, you'll see my work on my website.
Well, it sticks in your memory. So,
right.
But the photography is really something else. I know there's so many people who want to do that, to travel and go to exotic locales or different locales, get out of their element. What would you say to people who want to do that? Just go out and do it, or how did you do it?
Well, I was fortunate enough, I started as, in the film industry, I started as a storyteller, and I got hired by some nonprofit organizations to go and document children living in abject poverty. And I made them promise when I took the job, I said, I will film children living in these situations, but I won't do poverty pornography. I'm not going to use images or create images to show things. I'll show children in their context, but I'm going to show children with pride, and children and people with pride, not with this helplessness, and use that to sell and make donations. So they agreed to that. And while I was filming a lot of these little documentaries, I just had a little point and shoot with me. And that's what most of those images are from. There was a saying by photographers like Cartier-Bresson and I'm sorry, Frank Capra, you know, if your picture isn't good enough, you're not close enough. So using no telephoto, just using a small camera and getting close to your subject, I found great success. And that's how I try to shoot all of my portraits, and you'll see on my website how I try. And that's where I got the inspiration for the Revolution of Cassandra, actually, was seeing these people, the strength of these people living in these conditions.
I would encourage folks to check out your short film, which is available. You just go to the same website, Anna's Playground. And there's like a recurring theme here of children, innocent bystanders caught in war who have to become warriors. It's an amazing little movie.
Mm-hmm.
Did you want?
Yeah. It's a story. Anna's Playground is a story about 3 kids who are playing soccer in a war-torn street. The country is unidentifiable, much like Revolution of Cassandra, because it's a parable. It's an analogy. It's not meant to be politicized, because I want to focus on the humanity. I don't want to focus on the politics of a specific region. And as these kids are playing, their ball gets kicked over the fence to a kill zone of a sniper. And one of the kids is selected to go and retrieve the ball. It's a little, 10-year-old girl named Anna. And what I can say is that there's a relationship that starts between this unseen sniper and this girl who's trying to retrieve her ball. There's no dialogue, and it plays in every culture really well. And yeah, it saw a lot of success, and it was a great learning experience about empathy and about trying to convey a message or to convey a story with no words.
Maybe we should talk a little bit about Amy Lee, your connection with her, and the hit song, "Use My Voice."
Yeah, I met Amy on my first feature, which was called Voice from the Stone, starring Emilia Clarke and Martin Shokesh and Katerina Marino. And that story is basically, it's a romance. The distributors decided to sell it as a horror film, which is not the movie I made, but that's a whole nother story. But it's a romance between a mother who's a maternal romance, if that doesn't sound creepy. It's not meant to be. It's a maternal love story. Romance is the wrong word. It's a maternal love story. And this mother dies and refuses to leave her son. And the son believes he can hear the voice of his mother in the castle that he lives in Italy. And this nurse comes and tries to help him get rid of this mental malady that he has, is hearing these voices. And now the nurse begins to hear the voices as well. And when I showed the film to Amy, she loved it and called me back immediately and said, "What do you want? How do you want to do this?" And I said, "I want, when the picture goes to black, I want the first thing we hear is the voice of the mother singing to her son, the dead mother singing from the grave to her son." And she wrote the song "Speak to Me," which you can find that on YouTube as well. And that was just Amy by herself. And years later, we just kept in touch, and I sent her the screenplay for the Revolution of Cassandra, which is something I wrote in response to Anna's Playground. I wanted something with levity. I wanted a popcorn movie, but still had some meat on it and was still about something. And I sent it to her. I said, if you like it, would you write the foreword to the book? And she said, yes, let me read it. She loved it. She called me back. This is great. I'll do it. She hangs up. A month later, she sends me this song called "Use My Voice." And at that time, it was just an Amy Lee song. It was just her singing, almost a cappella, singing this song. And I thought, she said, "Could you use this in association with your graphic novel?" Because the story, ultimately, of the Revolution of Cassandra is using your voice for what you believe in, not complaining about what you're against. I know you've had the first 3 books, but you don't get to that until about the 5th or 6th book. But that's really the catharsis of the story, is standing up for what you believe in rather than complaining about everything around you. And she said that really was helping her figure out the chorus to this song called "Use My Voice." And another month or 2 goes by, and she said, "I played it for the band. They want to turn it into an Evanescence song, and we'd love for you to direct the music video." and it just kind of just kept going, and it turned into this rock and roll song that it didn't start as. It started as very much almost a ballad. It was this beautiful, just sort of, which is how she writes. She just writes piano and voice, and then this magic of her and her collaborators turned it into this really kick-ass rock and roll song.
That's cool. Talk to us about comics and graphic novels. What was it like for you to take yours? Basically, I think if I got this right, you have a movie script that is then transferred into a comic, or did you have the cartoonist graphic novel take it away from there?
No, that's a good question. It's something I've always been interested in, but never saw the opportunity. And I've got my background is as a filmmaker, and I had made Anna's Playground, and the people behind Anna's Playground, the people who sponsored Anna's Playground to get it made, basically after the election, the last election in 16, approached me and said, we're feeling upset about the tone of what's happening right now in our, we don't need to get political, but they're just the tone of what's going on. And we'd like to make another short film. And I said, I think that's setting us up for failure because we did so well with Anna's Playground. But what do you think about a story about two women in the middle of this crazy world where everyone's fighting against everyone, and one of them just uses their voice for what they believe in and ends up changing the entire world around her? Instead, more of a perennial story rather than a political story focused on certain political things that really don't have any perennial or truth to them, right? That's just that's the madness of the moment. And so we talked through it, and they said that'd be great. And I said, well, I have this award-winning screenplay. It had won several awards, but my management had told me, look, and wisely they told me, they said, look, you're never going to get this made as a film because you don't have a big enough intellectual property. You don't have a brand behind this. So this go shoot something else, go direct something else and write something else, but this is not going to happen. So I pitched it as a graphic novel. And I said, let's make a graphic novel and let's wrap it around the messaging of being for something, not against everything. And they loved it. And they said, let's go on this journey. So then we started this process of finding artists and finding, I found a layout artist to collaborate with so that I could understand how to translate with them. I mean, I've read graphic novels and I love graphic novels, but I certainly wouldn't say that I was a master connoisseur of graphic novels. I needed to surround myself with people smarter than me, which generally speaking is easy to do. and just be the dumbest person in the room, but just explain, here's what I'm trying to say in this scene. Here's what I'm trying to say here. And then, sort of working with these collaborators, and it was a great experience. It continues to be a great experience. We're through all of the penciling of 5 of the books. We're penciling the 6th book and coloring the 5th and 6th book right now.
Well, I can see from your photography, from your movie work, from the comic that you are a storyteller of integrity. So yeah, I mean, it is smart to take the side of being the dumbest person in the room and just absorb from others. I mean, I've read so many comics, but I'm bad with names. And
right.
It's usually what's in front of me that I can focus on. And then somebody mentions the name, I say, can you put it in context? Right. I'm not sure who you're talking about. Right. But well, another thing we could mention is this tie-in you have with the Republic Restoratives Distillery. That sounds cool.
Yeah, that's really kind of fun. I mean, so when we me and my team, my producer, my investor, my associates, who all kind of have, again, I've surrounded myself with really smart men and women, and we kind of had this conversation about, if we're sitting in the back of a car with a load of books selling at a Comic-Con, I don't know that that's a marker for success for getting our story out there. I kind of feel like we're just going to blend in, and it's going to be kind of this get lost, because there's so much great work out there and it's really hard to stand out. And I thought about it, and I thought, I don't want to be the first, I want to be the only. And I thought, what if my mud on the wall idea was, what if we were the only graphic novel to be sold in Starbucks? And they said, okay, well, I don't know that we can do that, but that's a good idea. They like the concept of trying to fit our story into a different circle, into a different space, because I think people who enjoy graphic novels and God willing, this is a good graphic novel, they'll be drawn to it. They'll want to read it because they've maybe heard about it within the network of the graphic novel community and the comics community. But can we expand our circle into some communities that maybe don't always read graphic novels? And we looked at the book, and as I'm paging through, I'm like, well, Moira rolls loaded dice for whiskey in order to trade for humanitarian aid. And I thought, well, what a cool thing. Why don't we get a whiskey company involved and see if we can sort of find a way to cross-brand or cross-pollinate between our story and their story of selling whiskey? Because I kind of think everything is a story in some way. And especially whiskey, I don't know if you enjoy it or not, but it really is a conversational cocktail, right? I mean, sipping whiskey is a thing, and it's like smoking a cigar or drinking coffee. It exudes conversation and elicits conversation. And so we put the feelers out, and it turns out there's a company called Republic Restoratives out of Washington, D.C. And I think their motto is American, extremely American, and American and outspoken, American and outspoken. I think American, inclusive, and outspoken. That's what it is. And turns out these are this group of business owners. They are one of 3 LGBTQ distillers in the world. They're one of the few that make their own mash. They're very much outspoken, and they sort of believe in speaking out and speaking up for what they believe in. And I contacted them, and I said, well, here's my whole thing. Here's the story. Here's what these women do. And they're trying to change the world. They're trying to do their best in a world that doesn't want anything to do with them. And they said, well, turns out when you're releasing your book, we're releasing our next rye, which is called Purpose Rye. What is your purpose? And we want people talking about their purpose when they drink our whiskey. And we thought, well, this is a great combination. This is a great way to create dialogue around whiskey, around storytelling, around graphic novels, and around something bigger than ourselves. And
yeah,
that's kind of what I want to keep doing, is finding and collaborating. So we decided to co-brand with them. But what's kind of fun about this is now we had Amy with the song come on board as part of the inspiration for a song. And now we have a whiskey that we've co-branded with. And I went out and started getting other artists. I got a fragrance designer to make a Cassandra fragrance by using her voice with her fragrance and using her voice for what she believes in, and how she expresses it is through fragrance. Another jeweler. And so they're all making sort of Cassandra inspired products, but I don't make anything from it. It's for them. It's their expression of our theme. And the idea being that we're just kind of creating this movement around being for something, not against everything. And you'll see on our website, there's a community page where we just link to them and what they're doing. We don't take anything from that. We're just here to sell a graphic novel and to create conversation and to highlight people that are using their voice. And Republic Restoratives with their Purpose Rye, which, by the way, if any whiskey drinkers out there, it's fantastic. I'm not a rye whiskey drinker until I drank this. It's super flavorful and not sweet at all. But, well, there's a hint of sweet, but it doesn't overpower. So I'm really enjoying it, and I'm really having fun with meeting and collaborating with all of these different people that are expressing themselves in unique ways.
All right. Well, I would be tempted to just leave it there unless you had any parting thoughts, because I think that covers it quite well.
No, I think if people would check out revolutionofcassandra.com, I'd love for people to read the first book, maybe buy the second book. You're certainly in third. Those are both available. We're an independent publication, so your money goes directly to the artists. You know, this is a labor of love, so any love we can receive, we'd love it. And you know, check out Purpose Rye.
Okay. Thanks so much, Eric.
I'm really grateful. Thank you, Henry.